burning fat to lose weight is something almost everyone has thought about at some point, and there seems to be an endless debate about how to do it. The best workouts, the perfect diets, the mysterious fat-burning zone. But here's something that might surprise you. Physiologically, there is only one way your body can burn fat. Not multiple, not several, just one. And understanding this single pathway changes everything about how you should approach fat loss. Today we're going to explore that one pathway, the only metabolic route that can break down fat for energy. We'll examine the different types of fat in your body, how fat cells actually work, and why the energy systems you use during exercise determine whether you're burning fat or something else entirely. By the end, you'll understand exactly what the fat-burning zone really means, why higher intensity exercise might actually burn more fat overall, and how to structure your workouts for optimal results. Let's start with some key facts about fat, because not all fat is the same, and understanding the differences will help us grasp the mechanisms involved in losing it. Most of what we deal with as adults is white adipose tissue, white fat. This is the fat that stores energy, provides padding and insulation, and can build up under your skin or around your organs. It's what most people think of when they think of body fat. White fat can be subdivided by its location. Subcutaneous fat sits just beneath the skin but on top of the muscles. It's what hides those abs and other muscles if it gets thick enough. It can be millimeters thick, or it can be many centimeters thick. Then there's visceral fat, the fat that wraps around your organs like your heart, liver, and intestines. This is the more dangerous fat because excess amounts are more strongly linked to health issues like type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and high blood pressure. Studies also show it can ramp up inflammation and mess with insulin sensitivity. Visceral fat varies in thickness too. At healthy levels it's thin. At unhealthy levels it's thick and can significantly increase your disease risk. There's also brown adipose tissue, brown fat, which is more common in babies. It gets its color from being packed with specialized mitochondria and blood vessels. Unlike white fat, brown fat burns calories to actually generate heat. Adults do have some brown fat, mostly around the neck and upper back, and cold exposure might boost it or activate those specialized mitochondria. Now, let's understand how fat tissue behaves with weight gain and weight loss. What actually happens when the tissue gets thicker? And what happens when it gets thinner? Adipose tissue is classified as a connective tissue made up of fat cells, called adipocytes, and a loose network of collagen fibers dispersed between those fat cells. These cells are like little storage units packed with triglycerides. A triglyceride is a molecule of glycerol bonded to 3 fatty acids. When you gain weight in the form of fat, these cells literally fill up with more triglycerides, causing the cells to get bigger. As the cells continue to grow, the overall fatty tissue gets thicker. When you lose weight from losing fat, often through calorie restriction, exercise, or a combination, signals are sent to the fat cells, causing them to perform lipolysis. Lipo refers to fat, and lysis refers to breakdown. The triglycerides are broken down, and the fatty acids are released from the fat cells. Outside the fat cells, tiny blood vessels called capillaries take up the fatty acids. Once in the blood, those fatty acids can be transported to almost any cell throughout the body that might need them for energy. That could be your quad muscle contracting during an exercise session. If the fat cells release more fatty acids than they store, they shrink. As the cells continue to shrink, the tissue gets thinner, making it easier to see the muscles underneath. But here's where we get to the core of today's topic. Once those fatty acids are in the bloodstream and delivered to cells, there is only one way to actually burn them for energy. And that brings us to the 3 energy systems of the human body. Your body has 3 main energy systems to produce ATP, adenosine triphosphate, the energy currency of our cells. We produce ATP primarily from carbohydrates and fats, but we can also use proteins if needed. And only one of these 3 systems is capable of burning fat. The first system is the creatine phosphate system, sometimes called the phosphocreatine system. This system handles super short, explosive, high-intensity efforts like the first 5 to 10 seconds of a sprint or a heavy set of low-rep squats. It uses stored creatine phosphate in your muscles to quickly regenerate ATP. The benefit is that no oxygen is needed and it's super fast. The drawback is that you can only store so much creatine phosphate, so it runs out quickly, in about 5 to 10 seconds, Creatine supplementation can extend that time by a few seconds, which is how creatine improves performance. But notice this, no fat is burned with this energy system. 0. The second system is anaerobic glycolysis. Anaerobic means without oxygen, and glycolysis refers to the breakdown of glucose. This system kicks in for medium duration, high-intensity activities, like 10 to 120 seconds of all-out efforts or high-intensity intervals. The benefit is that it's also relatively fast at generating ATP. But without oxygen, the breakdown of one glucose molecule only produces a net of 2 ATP molecules. Eventually, in about 90 to 120 seconds, that just won't be enough to sustain the effort. You'll have to stop or slow down. Plus, a byproduct of this system is lactic acid, which quickly dissociates into lactate and a hydrogen ion. Those hydrogen ions temporarily increase acidity in the muscle fiber, leading to fatigue. And like the creatine phosphate system, this system is also not capable of burning fat. No fat is burned in anaerobic glycolysis either. The third system, and the only one that can burn fat, is the aerobic energy system, sometimes called oxidative phosphorylation. Aerobic and oxidative both refer to the use of oxygen. Phosphorylation means adding a phosphate to ADP to create more ATP. This is the only energy system that can break down fats. It happens in the mitochondria of the cell and can actually use carbs, proteins, and fats as fuel to make ATP. But again, it's the only pathway for burning fat. There is only one way your body can burn fat. One pathway, one system. Understanding it changes everything. Why can fats only be broken down by this system? The answer is oxygen. Fat breakdown releases fatty acids into your blood. Those fatty acids enter cells and muscle fibers that have mitochondria. The fatty acids get shuttled into the mitochondria and go through a process called beta oxidation, where they're oxidized. The products of beta oxidation are then funneled into the Krebs cycle, where they're further oxidized with oxygen, resulting in a ton of ATP. Without oxygen in this pathway, fats simply cannot be used for energy. In some ways, carbohydrates are more versatile because they can be used in anaerobic glycolysis, and with enough oxygen, some products of carbohydrate breakdown can enter the mitochondria and make 30 to 32 ATP per glucose molecule, but that's nothing compared to the breakdown of one fatty acid chain. For example, a 16-carbon fatty acid like palmitate produces about 113 ATP molecules. That's over 3 times more energy per molecule than glucose. So you might think, that's incredible! Why not always use fat? Well, just like the other two energy systems, there are pros and cons. The pros of the aerobic system are the massive amount of ATP you get, and what seems like an almost limitless supply of energy. 1 pound of fat packs about 3,500 calories. A 180-pound person at 15% body fat has around 94,500 calories in reserve. The cons, this system is slow. It takes many more steps, chemical compounds and enzymes to generate ATP from fat compared to the other two faster systems. And mobilizing fat from adipose tissue to lose weight takes even more time. Pulling fatty acids from fat cells, moving them through the bloodstream and into exercising skeletal muscle. Also, this system requires a lot of oxygen. At rest, that's fine. Your metabolic demand and oxygen demand are low, and your heart and lungs have no problem supplying the oxygen needed. This is even true with slight increases in demand during walking or light jogging. But as you increase the intensity during exercise, oxygen demand goes up. You become dependent on your cardiovascular and respiratory systems. Your lungs can only exchange so much oxygen and carbon dioxide. Your heart can only pump so much blood. Your blood can only deliver so much oxygen. So at higher intensities, you literally cannot get enough oxygen to working muscles fast enough. And you don't have time to use all the extra steps required to burn fat. You have to rely on carbohydrates and the anaerobic energy systems. But here's something incredible. The level of intensity at which you start to cross over and rely on carbohydrates depends on your fitness level. As someone gets more fit, especially through aerobic training, their heart gets stronger and pumps more blood. They increase the number of red blood cells. They increase the number of capillaries going to skeletal muscles. They even increase blood volume. All of this results in more oxygen being delivered to exercising skeletal muscle. So you can stay within the aerobic energy system and the fat-burning zone at a higher intensity before needing to shift to anaerobic systems. For example, when you were less fit, you could stay in the fat-burning zone at 5 miles per hour on a treadmill. As you got more fit, you could stay in that same zone at 6 miles per hour, all because your cardiovascular system got better at delivering oxygen. This finally brings us to the big question: what is the best type of exercise to burn fat? Here's the fascinating thing. You technically burn the highest percentage of fat at rest, but percentage doesn't equal total amount. To understand why, let's look at a chart from a case study of a male recreational athlete in his 40s training for a marathon. As heart rate increases, which we can think of as a proxy for exercise intensity, the percentage of energy coming from fat goes down, while the percentage from carbohydrates goes up. This matches what we've discussed. Carbohydrates are simply a faster fuel source, but here's the key concept. Even though the percentage of fat being used drops, the total number of calories burned per minute increases. Fat oxidation, measured in calories per minute, actually increases as intensity rises, because that lower percentage is coming from a much larger total. This increase in fat oxidation only occurs up to a point. In this individual, it peaked around a heart rate of 130 beats per minute. That's the highest amount of fat oxidation at that heart rate. And this is what people call the fat burning zone. Zone 2, to be clear, this concept is rooted in real physiology. There really is an intensity where fat oxidation is maximized during exercise, but your individual fat burning zone might not be at 138 beats per minute. It depends on your age, fitness level, resting heart rate, and max heart rate. The overall pattern, percentages of fat going down and carbohydrates going up with intensity, would be the same for you. Your fat burning zone might be in the 140s or the 120s. It's essentially what the fitness world calls Zone 2 training, about 60 to 70% of your max heart rate. But here's where people get tripped up. The fat burning zone only tells us where fat burning peaks during the workout. It doesn't tell us where fat loss is maximized over time. As intensity continues to rise past this point, fat oxidation per minute starts to decline slightly, but total calories burned continues to climb. People see that fat calories are slightly lower at higher intensities and assume fat loss will be worse unless they scale back. But that conclusion doesn't hold true once you zoom out beyond the exercise session itself. Fat loss doesn't happen minute by minute. It happens over hours, days, and weeks. Let's say you do a 45-minute higher intensity steady state run in Zone 3 or Zone 4 instead of a 45-minute Zone 2 session. Even though the higher intensity exercise burns less fat per minute during the exercise, it burns a higher total of overall calories. This creates a larger overall energy deficit and places greater recovery demands on the body. When you recover, you're restoring ATP, resynthesizing phosphocreatine, reestablishing ion gradients, and replenishing glycogen. You have an energy debt that needs to be repaid. Some of it gets repaid from carbohydrates, but during recovery, a huge portion comes from fat. In many cases, this can result in greater total fat oxidation over a 24-hour period compared to a lower intensity session alone. This also applies to high-intensity interval training. During a hard interval, something you could only do for 3 to 4 minutes, fat oxidation is relatively low. If you do really high-intensity intervals, 30 to 90 seconds, fat oxidation is even lower, approaching zero in some cases. Almost all energy comes from carbs through anaerobic glycolysis. But between intervals, when you're recovering, walking or jogging at Zone 2, you're breathing like crazy and using the aerobic system and fats to regenerate ATP, resynthesize phosphocreatine, and re-establish ion gradients. Fat becomes an important fuel even with high-intensity intervals. Don't ask, am I burning fat right now? Ask, am I creating the conditions for my body to burn fat overall? So instead of asking, am I burning fat right this second? A better question is, am I creating the conditions that allow my body to burn fat overall? The answer is burning a meaningful amount of total energy through a combination of different training intensities throughout the week. Why isn't the answer, just do the highest intensity you can for every session? Because that often leads to burnout or overtraining. You can't maintain extremely high levels of intensity session after session. Plus, there are still benefits to spending time in Zone 2. It burns a decent amount of fat. It stimulates mitochondrial biosynthesis, meaning the mitochondria you have get bigger and you create more of them. This has incredible metabolic benefits, like reducing your risk of type 2 diabetes. Plus, Zone 2 trains your body to metabolize even more fats in that fat-burning zone. you'll start to see the fat oxidation number creep up at the same level of intensity. This will also trickle into your overall fat burning capacity on higher intensity days, and we can't forget about preserving muscle mass. Resistance training burns calories, plus it provides the benefits of increased strength, improved bone density, and helping to keep your baseline energy needs higher. Here's a sample weekly split. Resistance training on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, alternating upper body and lower body days. Cardiovascular training on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. For cardio, you can alternate between Zone 2 and higher intensity days. Some people like to alternate every session. Zone 2 on Monday, high intensity on Wednesday, Zone 2 on Friday, and then flip it the next week. Others like to do Zone 2 on Monday and Wednesday, and then go hard on Friday. The beauty of exercise programming is that you can tweak so many variables to match your specific goals and still be very beneficial for your overall health. Zone 2 training helps you build your aerobic base. It increases mitochondrial density. It improves your body's ability to use fat for fuel. It reduces your risk of metabolic disease. Higher intensity training burns more calories per minute, creates a larger post-exercise energy debt, and improves your cardiovascular capacity in different ways. Resistance training preserves muscle mass, increases bone density, and keeps your resting metabolic rate higher. When you combine all three, Zone 2 cardio, higher intensity cardio, and resistance training, you create a comprehensive approach that addresses every aspect of fat loss and overall health. Here's what you need to remember. Fat can only be burned through the aerobic energy system. This system requires oxygen. It takes time, but it produces massive amounts of energy. The fat-burning zone is real. It's where fat oxidation peaks during exercise, but it's not the only place fat gets burned. Higher intensity exercise and the recovery that follows can result in greater total fat loss over time. Your fitness level determines how efficiently you burn fat. The more aerobically fit you are, the more fat you can burn at higher intensities. The optimal approach is a combination of training intensities. Zone 2 for mitochondrial health and fat burning capacity, higher intensity for total calorie burn and post-exercise effects, and resistance training for muscle preservation and metabolic rate. Don't get stuck in the trap of thinking you have to stay in the fat-burning zone to lose fat. That's only part of the equation. The bigger picture includes what happens during and after every workout session, over days, weeks, and months. The single most important factor is consistency. A well-rounded program that you can stick to will always beat the perfect program that you can't maintain. The single most important factor is consistency. A well-rounded program you can stick to beats the perfect program you can't maintain. Your body is a remarkable machine. It's designed to adapt to what you ask of it. When you challenge it with different intensities, it responds by becoming more efficient at using fat for fuel. When you give it consistent stimulus, it rebuilds itself stronger and more capable. This is what metabolic health looks like. Not just being able to burn fat, but being able to recover quickly, maintain muscle, and keep your energy systems running smoothly. Every time you exercise, you're not just burning calories. You're improving your body's ability to burn fat in the future. You're building mitochondria. You're increasing capillary density. You're making your heart more efficient. These adaptations compound over time. The best approach is to think long-term. A single workout doesn't determine your health. A single week doesn't either. It's the cumulative effect of months and years of consistent effort that transforms your body. If you're exercising regularly, eating well, and staying consistent, you're on the right track. The details. Zone 2 versus HIIT, fasted versus fed, morning versus evening. They matter, but they matter far less than showing up day after day, so keep showing up. Keep pushing yourself at different intensities. Keep challenging your body to adapt, and trust that the system, the one pathway that burns fat, will work exactly as it's designed to when you give it the right conditions. Thanks for watching Winds of Thought. If this video helped you understand fat burning better, please hit that like button. It helps others discover this information too. Drop a comment and let us know what surprised you most about how your body burns fat, and I'll see you in the next one.